Hello, good evening and welcome to Hot Edition, your hottest 1 hour on radio. We are live from the studios of 3FM 92.7. My name is Martin Asiedu-Dartey and this is Hot Edition. Today it's been a hot budget day in Parliament. We'll be bringing you the specifics of what the Finance Minister has been saying to the House of Parliament and by extension to the entire Ghanaian populace about how they intend to manage the economy in 2024, which also is an election year. Coming up this evening, government to spend 226.7 billion Ghana cedis from a projected 176.4 billion Ghana cedis revenue for next year. Details from revenue and expenditure measures, which include tax handles you should expect in 2024. Meanwhile, the government has budgeted 220 million cedis to support communities that have been affected by the Akonsombo Dam spillage and also other communities within the Oti, Savannah and Bono East regions who were all affected by the floods. Stay tuned as we delve deeper into the 2024 budget statement and economic policy. Let's settle for the details of the stories now. And as you would know, Parliament has been a very busy place for activity today. Government is projecting to raise 176.4 billion Ghana cedis in revenue in the 2024 fiscal year. Out of this, total expenditure stands at 226.7 billion cedis. The projected overall balance is a deficit of 50.1 billion Ghana cedis, which is 4.8% of the GDP of the country. Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta disclosed this when he presented government's budget statement and economic policy for 2024 in Parliament. Ghana has for the past 3 years been reeling under economic crisis underpinned by hyperinflation, a depreciation of the local currency, high taxes, high interest rates, unemployment, and general economic malaise. The situation compelled government to seek a $3 billion International Monetary Fund, that's the IMF support program. So let's go to Parliament now and listen to Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta on some of the major issues that he's been talking about.
Mr. Speaker, total expenditure is projected at 226.7 billion, 21.6% of GDP. This projection reflects a reduction of 6.1 percentage points of GDP in total expenditure commitment basis compared to the outturn in 2022. This large decrease comes from the combination of fiscal consolidation efforts of 4.9 percentage points of GDP, reflecting an adjustment in revenue by 1.1 percentage point and primary expenditure by 3.9 percentage points of GDP. The potential interest rate savings from the ongoing external debt operation will further bolster public finance sustainability. Mr. Speaker, based on the estimates for total revenue and grants and total expenditure, including arrears clearance, the overall budget balance will be financed in a fiscal deficit of 61.9 billion, equivalent to 5.9% of GDP. The corresponding primary balance is a deficit of 5.9 billion, equivalent to 0.6% of GDP.
And so that is Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta, who, amongst other things, has been outlining a number of tax reliefs that he and the NPP government have given Ghanaians or the Ghanaian economy and key sector players as well. But before we get into the specifics of what he said regarding the tax reliefs, he also talked about the twin spillage or the spillage of the Akonsombo and Kpong dams and its after effect on a number of Ghanaian citizens within the Volta, Oti, Savannah and Bono regions, and has said that government has budgeted some 220 million Ghana cedis to support the affected communities. Let's listen exactly to what the Finance Minister has been saying regarding that specific concern about what government has been doing or will do about those that have been affected by the Akonsombo Dam.
The Volta River Authority.
Government has rolled out the National Rental Assistance Scheme in February 2023 to ease the burden of huge rent advance payments by prospective tenants. Mr. Speaker, government continued works on phase 3 of the Security Services Housing Program, involving the construction of 320 units for the Ghana Police Service at the Ghana National Police Training School, Tesano.
All right, so that's the Finance Minister, Kenneth Ofori-Atta there. So we'll bring you some other specific issues he touched on, from housing to the fact that they are going to be reconstructing the La General Hospital, where he says that some arrangements in terms of financing has actually been procured or secured now, and that the contractor should be on site from next week, and security and the tax reliefs I mentioned. Let's engage the thoughts of an economist himself, Professor John Gachi, who is a professor of economics and finance at the University of Cape Coast, also the dean of the Cape Coast Business School. Prof, a very good evening to you. Thank you for your time. Hello, Professor Gachi.
Hello.
Thank you for your time and good evening to you. I'm sure you've been following, or at least you listened to what the Finance Minister said. What are your initial assessments of the budget that he presented for 2024?
I didn't get the question well.
I am asking that after listening to earlier, we spoke to you, you shared your thoughts and expectations of what you are looking forward to. Now he has presented the budget. What are the high points and low points for you, sir?
Well, I think so far we just replicated the 2023 budget in a different fashion. We have seen youth start prominent in 2023 budget, and it's only surprising that we have been told that we are going to start next year in earnest. So which means that 2023, we don't see anything happen. Then again, I said that we are expecting realignment of taxes, and that is what will be the business of the day. And we have seen the realignment of taxes come on board. But what is very useful about sanitation tax waiver, or the waiver that we provided for sanitation, is such that we want to see domestic production. So all the relief that we're talking about are towards local production. We also have relief for importation of materials to produce sanitary pads in the countries, which means that the idea is to promote local production of the sanitary pads, and that, I believe, is a good consideration that has come in the budget.
Right, Prof. So let's go to one of the key highlights of the budget reading that has caught the attention of a few, which is that the government, according to the Finance Minister, is projecting to spend 226.7 billion cedis, and they are projecting 176 billion cedis as revenue for next year. Is that economically sound?
Well, deficit is acceptable, but in some jurisdictions like advanced economies, they are talking about 3% deficit. That is acceptable to them, and I believe the West African sub-region is a little bit higher for that deficit. I think when we are within the framework of fiscal responsibility, that should be 5%. So the idea that we are having a deficit is not against economic principles, but how you are going to finance the deficit, that is where the issue is. And whether the expenditure that you are going to engage in is actually productive and efficient expenditure, that is another thing to consider. So our focus now should be how are we going to finance the deficit, bearing in mind that we are locked out from the external market, and then in addition to that, we are not being allowed by the IMF engagement for the Bank of Ghana to finance the deficit for government. So how are we going to finance the deficit? That is the question we should be asking ourselves. And the approach we are going to use to finance the deficit, what effect will it have on the generality of the economy? So those are the questions I believe should be on the table.
And maybe my final question before you take leave of us. We are under an IMF program which has clearly influenced the budget that was read. But from your analysis of the budget, how much of an IMF, impact or input is in this budget that was read?
Well, I think you see clearly that the finance minister is very conservative about cancelling any taxes. That has not happened. The only thing is to give incentive to use the fiscal measure to give incentive to production of sanitary pads. So you see that clearly in the presentation. It's very conservative in maintaining the status quo.
Okay. Look, I beg your pardon, Professor Gachi. We may have to leave it here for now, but thank you so much. We'll definitely be engaging you further as we seek further understanding of the 2024 budget that has been read by Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta in Parliament. And for many of you who have been following, let's take you through some of the key tax reliefs that the Finance Minister mentioned in Parliament, saying that as part of strategies economically to raise revenue and ensure that enough taxes are collected, and also some taxes taking off already existing ones. This is how government intends to address this particular challenge.
Mr. Speaker, the following reliefs have been prioritized for implementation. To extend, Mr. Speaker, the zero rate of VAT on locally manufactured African prints for 2 more years. Mr. Speaker, to waive import duties on import of electric vehicles for public transportation for a period of 8 years. Mr. Speaker, to waive import duties on semi-knocked down and completely knocked down electric vehicles imported by registered EV assembly companies in Ghana for a period of 8 years. Mr. Speaker, to extend zero rate of VAT on locally assembled vehicles for 2 more years. Mr. Speaker, to zero rate VAT on locally produced sanitary pads. Mr. Speaker, to grant import duty waivers for raw materials for the local manufacture of sanitary pads. Mr. Speaker, to grant exemptions on the importation of agricultural machinery equipment and inputs and medical consumables, raw materials for the pharmaceuticals industry.
Right, so those are the tax reliefs that government is rolling out going into 2024. Let's go back to the phone lines now and engage some of the key players within the finance and economic sector of the country, specifically when it comes to import and export, which is a major component of how government makes its revenue. Samson Asaki Awingobet is the executive secretary of the Ghana Importers and Exporters Association. He's joined us. Samson, good evening. Thank you for your time. First of all, your immediate analysis of what the budget is, how it directly impacts your sector.
Well, thank you very much, and good evening, to your viewers and your listeners all over the country. I can say that the budget today we are not satisfied. The finance minister could not meet our satisfaction because we requested that the finance minister should be able to abolish the COVID levy for us, which he was silent on it. We requested that the 2% import levy is long overdue. This is the information on the We requested that if the finance minister should be able to abolish the 2% special levy for us, which he was also silent about it. We also requested that the 2.5 VAT upfront at the should look at it. We also said that the benchmark value that the totally abolished has really caused the cost of doing business in our port, and that because of that, many Ghanaian importers are diverting their cargo to Ivory Coast, which is supposed to have come to our port here. Many Ghanaians are diverting their cargo to Lomé, Togo port, which have come to our port. And today, as we speak, our port is not busy as it doesn't show that we are even within Christmas period. And so, but the finance minister 10 years on us, even though someone will say that he did not do, yes, he didn't listen to us, but he did not also introduce any new tax. But however, we think that he said that the 2.5 VAT upfront tax will even be expanded because he said it will expand to vegetables importers or so. And then also, I strongly believe that we were looking forward to see the current VAT stance itself. 15% rate of rated VAT is high. I mean, you can't say it's not high. And you can't say if you go to the market, you are not feeling prices of goods going up. Yet, the finance minister said that it's budget. I will rather unfortunate. I think that this is a good budget because this is the budget I have never seen in the life of my time as I become an advocate, that a finance minister will present a budget, the whole budget of the country, and the majority leader of parliament was sitting there and said, I cannot make any comment of this. You ran away, shy away, and rather ask the deputy to write.
Okay, maybe that is the politics of what transpired in parliament. But to the specifics of the content of the budget, you as importers and exporters, like you indicated, were asking for instance, the scrapping of the COVID levy, the 2% import levy, and that has not been captured. Have you sought to find out why? Could it not be because we are under an IMF program and that, part of the conditions will be that we should not touch any existing taxes?
My brother, Martin, you have been in this country. Don't forget that this government promised business community that they were going to move them from taxation to production. You do not forget that this government promised that they were business friendly. My brother, do not forget that we cannot continue to be taught in this way. I strongly believe that the government have deceived us for the past 7 years, and we cannot continue in that way. So you can call it a parliament policy, but I can tell you that the business community, so they can hear, so that I can tell you can call it that it's a parliament policy, but the public are watching. When did you see that the finance minister of the state give a state of the budgetary state economic policy of the year, and your majority leader says that I won't write it? I mean, he didn't believe that it's not including budget. You understand? It means it seems that the Ghanaians are angry. Ghanaians really want to enjoy Christmas, which is not prepared to make Ghanaians enjoy this Christmas. That is what it means to us. And so, Martin, I will tell you that I was totally disappointed. Even he said that zero rated sanitary pad that is being produced locally. But we have the capacity. Those who are producing, I'm not saying they're not producing sanitary pad in the country, but at what capacity are we? And so I strongly believe that you remember AGR also raised issues in regards to cost of utility tariff. Has it done something for the utility tariff for them to maximize or to increase production? No. So absolutely, I strongly believe that we in the business community cannot even reduce price for this Christmas. He is even saying that there will be police all over the country. Yes, police will be there, security will be provided. But the purchasing power of Ghanaians will not make Ghanaians to enjoy the Christmas. That is what he didn't consider. He should have considered that by giving us some tax relief. At least COVID levy. Why would government continue to want to...
But maybe not in your specific sector, Mr. Awingobit, but the finance minister, we actually just played some of the reliefs that he has given, one of which you mentioned that there's the zero rate VAT on the local production of sanitary pads. He talks about the a reduction in those import duties for electric vehicles that are going to be coming in. So maybe as an importer, you might want to review your business imports. Don't you think so?
How many Ghanaians are using electric vehicle in this country, my brother? How many Ghanaians, and even how much is it going to cost us? So, my brother, we cannot eat, you can't eat your cake and have it. I can tell you completely that if you go to make foods in the market, whether the presentation of the finance minister budget today has Ghanaians satisfied, they will tell you they are not satisfied.
Okay, Mr. Wingobe, we are grateful. Well, we are grateful that you made time to speak with us this evening. Samson Asakia Wingobit, Executive Director, Ghana's Importers and Exporters Association, sharing his thoughts on the budget there. Still on groupings and associations who are critical to the Ghanaian economy, we now have Dr. Joseph Obeng, who is the president of the Ghana Union of Traders Association, GUTA. Doc, good evening. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, good evening, sir.
This certainly must be an incunim budget for you and your members, is it not?
Yeah, our demands were simply not met. I hope we have talked before the budget reading, and our demand, or if you can say petition, was that the COVID-19 levy be removed, and that the special import levy also be removed, and that the VAT as it is now does not ensure compliance by the informal, especially the informal sector. And all these things were not addressed. Even though we admit that some section of the industry had some tax relief, which is also good for us. We are talking about those in the car industry, the electric car industry, locally vehicle manufacturers, African print manufacturers, sanitary part manufacturers, and agri manufacturing, agri machinery imports that have been exempted from taxes. It will go a long way to help that sector of businesses, and even in the case of agri, it's going to help all of us because it's going to enhance on productivity, agri productivity. But for the business community, the trading community, the status quo remains, and that we are still going to confront the old issues of high cost of doing business, our businesses collapsing, and all that. And so nothing really changed for the business sector, and we have to confront the issues ahead. Yeah.
And Doc, I mean, you actually just repeated some of the tax reliefs that the finance minister gave or mentioned. There is also the bit about the other components that he didn't give. Could you not, is it possible that you understand that it could be because we are currently under an IMF program, so we are actually between a rock and a hard place, and part of the burden sharing is that we cannot take down any further taxes?
Yes, so IMF does not seek to destroy businesses. I hope you understand that. IMF want to have a good reference that when they entered agreement with Ghana, the businesses had growth and succeeded. But I don't think so. It's all about negotiation, and it's all about you making a reasonable point. The fact that you reduce taxes does not mean you are not going to enhance on your revenue. You are not going to be able to enhance on your revenue. That's not true. Taxes, when they are affordable, also lead to enhancement of revenue. So they could have also argued in that state, and that it is also going to enhance on local productivity, because we know that taxation impedes on growth of businesses. And so it's about how you argue your case to IMF for them to understand. They are reasonable people who understand business and all that. So it's about how you present your case.
Okay.
And so
finally,
our demands were simply not met, and it's not good for the growth of business.
And finally, Doc, before you leave us, like I indicated, or as part of the presentation, the finance minister did not make any further introductions of taxes, or there were no new taxes introduced. With the current dispensation, will your colleagues or will people in the public sector, GUTA members, be able to survive at least through the next year, the 2024 year, especially as we have just heard the budget of how government intends to spend and get its money back?
Yeah, even we have been able to survive through 2022, the last quarter of 2022, where most of our capitals depleted. And we will continue to brace up any challenges that come our way. Because we are traders, we have to apply wisdom and tact in situations like this. And that makes us unique. That makes us business people. That makes us thinkers. And so we think around the challenges. And then you see that the reason why people respect the business community was definitely so true. But the unfortunate thing is that the natural sequence should have been that we pass on the cost to the final consumer. Unfortunately, this final consumer have no capacity to absorb again because their purchasing power has so diminished.
Yeah.
And so if you pass on, that's the challenge, the major challenge that we have now. Otherwise, we didn't have gotten any problem than to just to pass all the costs to the final consumer. And here too, we have the challenge. So I know much as we are going to try, most businesses will fall. I don't think most of them can make it. Yeah.
Doc, thank you so much for your time and pleasure talking to you. And you had Dr. Joseph, who is the president of the Ghana Union of Traders Association, GUTA. So, I mean, if you are a trader, if you are an importer or an exporter, certainly someone who plays within the Ghanaian economy, if you've heard this budget, what are your immediate thoughts on it? What do you make? Which specific sector are you? Are you in security or health or probably regular business? What do you make of the budget that was read today? We'll be happy to hear your thoughts on it and then how this directly or indirectly impacts you. Fortunately, for those who are just within the line of paying taxes, well, we may have to endure the current level of taxes for the next few year, at least for the next year, because no new taxes have been introduced, and that, according to the business community, is just okay. However, they had wished that other taxes were scrapped or reviewed further downwards. You're still listening to Hot Edition 92.7. This is 3FM, and we are bringing you highlights from the budget reading that ended a few hours ago in Parliament. The finance minister specifically touched on the fact that government is allocating some 220 million Ghana cedis to support communities that have been affected by the twin spillage of the Akosombo and Kpong dams. So let's go and listen to this report that captures that whole moment.
The Volta River Authority, VRA, in September initiated a controlled discharge at the Akosombo and Kpong dams due to the continuous increase in the water level caused by substantial inflows. Communities downstream the Volta Lake bore the brunt after the Volta River Authority spilled excess water from the Akosombo Dam. The spillage, according to the VRA, was to prevent possible damage to the Akosombo Dam, which is a main source of hydroelectric power generation in the country. The flooding led to the destruction of property, running into millions of cedis, damaged farms, and affected the economic livelihoods of people in the affected area. 39,336 persons within 8 districts have been displaced as a result of the floods, with 192 communities affected. Individuals, organizations, and groups, including Media General Limited, made donations to some affected areas to support the victims. The National Disaster Management Organization, NADMO, and the Ghana Armed Forces led government's efforts to support the communities impacted by the floods. The government subsequently set up a 13-member interministerial committee to coordinate the government response to victims affected by the Akosombo Dam spillage. Presenting the 2024 budget statement in Parliament, Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta announced that allocations have been made to cater for the communities affected. The allocation will also benefit areas above the Akosombo Dam affected by flooding, but not due to the spillage of the dam.
Mr. Speaker, government has budgeted an amount of 220 million to support the relief phase for the communities affected by the Akosombo spillage, as well as floods upstream in the Oti, Savannah, and Bono East regions.
For the restoration phase, the Finance Minister told Parliament that the government, through the Ministry of Agriculture, would allocate additional resources to support the restoration of livelihoods.
We have requested funding from the World Bank under the IDA crisis response window to support the resettlement of the victims, restoration of livelihoods, compensation, and reconstruction of infrastructure in the affected communities.
The National Disaster Management Organization, NADMO, has been conducting environmental and sanitation impact assessment in areas affected by the spillage of the Akosombo and Kpone dams. With floodwaters beginning to recede, it would take a while for residents to return to their homes.
And that report captures what exactly the finance minister said regarding the support that government is putting together for the affected victims in the Volta, Oti, Savannah, and Bono East regions following the flooding of the Volta Lake and then also the opening of the spillways of the Volta River Authority. All right, so let's go on to some of the key issues. So one of the very controversial subject matters that has dominated discussions, even in the last few weeks, has had to do with the La General Hospital, which government in 2020 demolished with the promise that they were going to erect an ultra-modern one. A few months after the contractor went on site, he disappeared, and 2-3 years down the line, we are told by the finance minister today that the contractor is expected to return to site next week. This is what he had to say.
Mr. Speaker, government has renegotiated the contract terms of the large General Hospital project and will now be funded through the national budget. The contractor is expected, Mr. Speaker, to be back on site next week to complete a significant amount of work by 2024.
Right? So government has renegotiated the terms and conditions with the contractor for the construction of the La General Hospital. Next week, our cameras, our microphones will be there to find out whether or not truly the contractor is back on site to begin work on that ultramodern hospital. Then let's talk about security, which is a very important component of managing any country or any sovereign state. And so the finance minister has been talking about the current upgrade of the Ghanaian security apparatus, and then also going forward, what strategy they intend to deploy to assist the security agencies protect the territorial integrity of Ghana.
Mr. Speaker, government will continue to resource the Ghana Armed Forces to collaborate with other security services in the operations such as Cowleg, Calm Life, Halt, Gongon, Conquered Fit, etc. Mr. Speaker, the establishment of 15 forward operating bases along the northern border of the country to also prevent cross-border crimes and terrorist infiltration are also progressing steadily. In addition, the FOB at its level in the Western region is 55% complete. Mr. Speaker, internal security by the Ghana Police Force continues to be sustained, and Mr. Speaker, the police service improved community watch program for professional motorbike riders has elevated the sense of security in the country. The service received 100 Toyota Hilux pickups, 6 armored personnel carriers, and 600 motorbikes to augment the fleet of the Foreign Police visibility motorbike patrol units to enhance their work. Mr. Speaker, immigration service is also being improved. The service also conducted 5,900 inspections at various locations and bringing much security to the country.
Right, so that's Finance Minister on plans to ensure that the security set up in the country is up to scratch as they roll out strategy to protect us, especially going into the 2024 elections, and with recent concerns of insecurity within the West African sub-region, and especially with concerns as well within the Sahel, and the intent of those terrorists and jihadists who intend to come down south into countries, especially that are bordering the Gulf of Guinea. So we are keeping a close eye on these kinds of issues that the finance minister raised, including the concern that some amount of money has been allocated as support for the persons, our fellow Ghanaians who've been affected by the twin spillage. Let's go to the phone line now and speak to Abena Jifa Gomashi, who is Member of Parliament for Ketu South constituency. Madam, a very good evening to you. Thank you for your time.
Abla is A-B-L-A.
Most certainly, I get the correction. Not Abena. It's Abla.
Good
Thank
evening,
you, madam.
Yes.
Right, I'm sure you sat through Parliament. You heard the Finance Minister. He says 220 million Ghana cedis has been allocated to assist our brothers and sisters who were affected. How do you take this news?
With a pinch of salt. With a pinch of salt, because I sat through 3 or 4 budget statements by the Finance Minister, and not much of what he says has materialized. He has not lived up to a lot of the promises that he's made. And so I'm holding my breath to see what he will indeed do. It's one thing writing a beautiful speech and reading it to us, and it's another thing implementing what it is. And I say this also because, if you recall, we've had the tidal wave inundate us in the 3 constituencies by the coast. And none of the promises that were made have come to fruition. He mentioned, he did not even put us in the budget of 2023, I think it was. Honorable Haruna Idrisu drew his attention, and he committed 10 million Ghana cedis for feasibility study. The gentleman, finance minister, has not told us what he has found out, what he's been able to do, and going forward, what will be done to alleviate the suffering of our people. So if he's coming now to say that he's budgeted for some compensation for victims of this human error, and the people who have suffered from it, I'm very skeptical, but as I said, I'm holding my breath.
Right.
I'm waiting to see what will happen.
So, if I get your earlier point, you said that you sat through meetings with them. There were proposals and suggestions that were shared, but most or majority of that was not captured in the budget as presented. Is that the point you make?
That's the point I'm making. It was not captured in the budget. And when he set the money aside to do the feasibility study, have you seen the feasibility study? Have you heard about it? What did they find? What did they propose to do?
Okay.
Nothing. Just complete blackout. Complete blackout on that factor that was in his own budget of 2023. If he comes back now telling me what he's going to do, I cannot be jumping hallelujah or eureka right now until I see the evidence of implementation.
And you also go on to say that last year, when some of the constituencies were affected by the tidal waves, a promise was made after some pressure was put on the government, and even that promise of 10 million Ghana cedis has not been delivered.
That's what I'm telling you. That he made so many promises and pledges. Why? Did he not? Is it not the same Kenoforiata who said that we're not going to the World Bank? Is it not?
Yes, it's the same man.
Has him taken us there? So if this same person is making promises, you have to hold your breath. You cannot say, Eureka, we have arrived. We have not arrived yet. We've only just heard him. We need to see that it's been implemented, and then we can breathe a sigh of relief. I don't trust Kenoforiata. I'm sorry, but I don't.
Okay. Before you take leave of us, Honorable, so on the face of it, as it stands, 220 million cedis is what has been budgeted for. You have been in that constituency, visited even colleague constituencies. Per the, maybe top of your head and your own audit, would that be enough? Or at least it is good enough seed money in terms of rebuilding and rehousing our colleagues?
About 11 constituencies have been affected. People have lost their source of livelihood. People have lost their property. State infrastructure has been affected. In fact, when the flooding happened, they switched off the electricity in Sugakop, and they were feeding that community on the one in Aflau. What do we know about the state of that? What is the money earmarked for? Is it for private? Is it for companies whose investment has been washed away? What is this for exactly? 11 constituencies. 11 constituencies. Look at Mefa alone. Look at South Town, Central Town, Katu South, Kata Anglo, Jaman, Adan. What exactly is that money going to do for the 11 constituencies? 11 constituencies.
All right. Honorable, thank you.
I take this with a pinch of salt.
Yes, I really appreciate your time and the explanation you've also brought to the conversation. Certainly we'll be engaging you as we move forward to see how, as a nation, we can put together enough relief for our brothers and sisters. Madam Abla Jifa Gomashi is a member of parliament for Ketu South constituency and has been sharing her thoughts on what the finance minister said specifically regarding how much government has allocated as support for those who've been affected by the twin spillage of the dams and then also the after effect of the overflowing of the Volta Lake. This is still 3FM 92.7. It's been, further analysis and a breakdown, and also extrapolating some of the key highlights of the 2024 budget that was read by Finance Minister Kenoforiata earlier today. We've brought you positions he shared on what government intends to do regarding revenue and expenditure. They've touched on security, some tax reliefs that government has also outlined. Now let's go to the public and pick the thoughts of the public, specifically those within the Abosokai enclave who've also been sharing their thoughts on what they make of the finance minister's position on the budget that he read in Parliament.
With the government, it's like when they give promises, I don't know, it's always been like we can't always depend on them because they've really given us hard times to trust them, first of all. There's a whole lot of things, reading budgets and promises and all these things we hear. We're even concerning even our duties when they were coming into power and all that. There was a whole lot of promises. We can answer, so if I should trust you from the beginning, how do you set things up for me, if I should trust you?
Because previous no much GD, I can't answer practice and go on. And then you was over San Casa, or you wrote to Eba, and now about baby, you have. I didn't know almost so. Once a baby you in somewhere, a boo baby sent to Quafun. I can't a phone. MPP abana, a phone. Maybe to me, need the budget no kind, though manko school ankachiri but brofo no kekan de meti biebre temi say a empty budget.
Me disappointed because na minimum say by all means 11 is ania ya kan ho asema kan no aban obeye fi ho and a second one covid tax no so na minimum say ania aban no ya bona chi abo no obey covid tax no so afri ho enti roto so na yenso ya need so say at least no so be man asa baba but anti hwe we dey me very disappointed because na minimum say ebeba ne say we dey my dia ban ho ya pa.
And so you hear the voices of some traders in and around Abosuokai who sell spare parts, sharing their thoughts on the budget that was read in Parliament today. That will be it for Hot Edition. At least the major part, we are now delving straight into the world of business. Michael Obodu takes over right after this.
Well, hello there. Welcome to the business segment here on Hot Edition. My name is Michael Obodu. Coming up, expert says 8 tax reliefs announced in the 2024 budget by the Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta not enough to cushion businesses. We have the details coming up shortly. Well, my name is Michael Obodu. Thank you for staying tuned. And now, in a bid to ease economic burden, the government has introduced some tax reliefs for the 2024 fiscal year. In his presentation before Parliament, Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta highlighted about 8 taxes that have been reviewed to support local industries. Meanwhile, economist, or rather an associate director of tax at accounting and auditing firm KPMG, Gordon Dade, says the 8 tax reliefs announced by government are not enough to cushion businesses. Well, so we'll bring you all those updates in our subsequent bulletins. But just to give you an idea of some of the indicators that were introduced for the 2024 budget, the government is hoping that overall real GDP growth will be at 2.8%, non-oil GDP growth at 2.1%, and period inflation at 15%. Interesting. And primary balance on commitment basis of a surplus of 0.5% of GDP. Gross international reserves to cover not less than 3 months of imports. Those were some of the issues that came out as part of the 2024 budget presentation. The government also hopes to rake in 176.4 billion cedis in total with revenue and grants. However, its total expenditure stands at 226.7 billion Ghana cedis with regards to expenditure. It'll be interesting to know government's plans with regards to that budget deficit, especially under the current IMF program that we find ourselves. So that will be all for today's edition of the business segment here on Hot Edition. My name is Michael Obodu. For more business stories, please check out our website 3news.com. Thank you for listening. As always, please stay safe. Up next is sports. Well,
Well, it's time for sports on Hot Edition. My name is Kelvin Oswanta. Let's get straight into the story. So the Black Stars continue their preparations ahead of the 2026 World Cup qualifiers against Madagascar and Comoros. The first of the games is coming up on Friday at the Barbara Sports Stadium. Here is my colleague Raphael Sarkodie giving us a report of what transpired at the training today.
Well, so we are currently here at the Barbara Stadium, day 2 of the Black Stars training behind closed doors. So we have been here, but obviously the tight security over here at the Barbara Stadium means that nobody will be granted access to the stadium to witness what is happening inside regarding the training of the Black Stars. What we can confirm is that goalkeeper Lawrence Atizigi, who was conspicuously missing in action yesterday, is currently with the team training over here at the Barbara Stadium, and that gives the full complement of the players who were called by Coach Chris Hutton. Well, so we have been speaking to some of the supporters to find out their expectations ahead of that particular game on Friday, and they have been sharing with us their thoughts.
We are expecting the Black Stars to win this qualifying match against the Madagascans here.
Madagascar boy be ye ba sanke be hwe ye prayers no ba na de o ma me yan wura enso ni nyina achi no du fia da ye be san ba be support wo me say ni.
We have also been to the Pajo Stadium where we witnessed Madagascar training, the Barriers of Madagascar training feverishly for this particular game, and indeed we can say that they arrived here in Kumasi, trained yesterday and had their second training today as well.
So that is Raphael Sarkodie from Akoma FM giving us the latest and bits and pieces from the Malagasy camp. The Black Stars are in Guship. Lawrence Atizigi is in camp. Now moving away from that, this evening at exactly 8 p.m. Ampimdako FC face Sporting Club Casablanca in the second semi-final of the CAF Women's Champions League. Head coach Nana Joe Adakwa is confident her ladies can deliver the ticket to the final.
They know us and we know them. They have watched our game and we've been watching their games. But inshallah, we are going to win the game. Anywhere that you are going, you don't need defeat. You predict when, you work for it, then you have it. I trust my girls. They are going to work. And definitely, with their hard work and determination, we can win the game. Oh, as for injuries, we don't have. Only our top striker, Mariam Ponsa, is not all that well. You can see that she's not playing our games, but other girls are there. Psychologically, we have psyched them. They know what is at stake, so they will work.
They know what is at stake, and so they are going to work. Kickoff is at 8 p.m., but the first semi-final is between, Mamelodi Sundowns and AS FAR Rabat of Morocco. First half, and it's goalless between the two teams. We wish our ladies the best of luck. Now, Heart of Lions head coach Salifou Fatau says he's under no pressure as he hopes his team finds the first win of the season. Accra Heart of Lions are winless in 10 matches so far in the 2023-2024 campaign. He spoke to Billy Shen ahead of GPL Express this evening.
I believe that I'm still working, and if I look at the game, we create the chances, we are not scoring, but doesn't mean that probably someone is stopping us from scoring. It's still the nature of the game, and we are working on it. For me, I don't think I heard what you are telling me now. Well, I think that if you look at our game, of course, you know that we are not just a defensive side. We create all the chances, we keep wasting them. And I think this particular challenge, looking at the league in Ghana, for now, I would say that it's a challenge that every team has. But ours is so much that I think that we need to work on it. And like you said, this is what I've been working on all the while, and I'm sure they are young. It's a young team. And of course, they will adapt to whatever we are giving them. And very soon, when we start scoring, it will look better.
It's going to look better according to Fatau. So catch the rest of that interview later this evening at 9:30 on TV3's The GPL Express Show. Now, Asante Kotoko have been paired against Nations FC in the round of 64 in the MTN FA Cup. Legon Cities will face Accra Lions. Defending champions Dreams FC will play against Susubribi FC, and Accra Hearts of Folk will face Abedi Pele's Nania FC. So these are the games coming up in the MTN FA Cup. But don't forget that the World Cup qualifiers begin this evening. Ethiopia play against Sierra Leone at exactly 7 p.m. And currently, DR Congo leading Mauritania by 2-0. Brentford's Johan Wissa and Bongonda has scored 2 goals. It's left with just 2 more minutes before the game ends. That will be all for sports. Akofa comes your way with entertainment. My name is Kelvin Ozanta.
Thank you very much, Kelvin, for the sports updates. You're still tuned in to Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. It's now time for the entertainment news segment powered by 3 Entertainment. My name is Akofa. Now, Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta says the government has invested in CCTVs and made available logistics to the security services to ensure the safety of tourists seeking to patronize the December NGH events. He was speaking at the 2024 budget presentation in Parliament earlier today.
Mr. Speaker, we continue to optimize our tourism infrastructure. The improvement in key tourist sites have been complemented by aggressive marketing to reposition Ghana. Next month, as in recent years, our country will expect to an increase in tourists seeking to patronize the December in Ghana event. Our investment in CCTVs and our roads and provisions of increased logistics for the security services will continue to support these events and make them memorable.
Akwaba to December in GH. Since 2019.
All right, away from that, President Akufo-Addo has tasked the Ministry of Tourism, Arts and Culture and the National Film Authority to make film tourism an important part of their activities. Speaking at the Africa Cinema Summit, the President noted that Ghana has a lot of forts, castles, festivals and other historical attractions that could be filmed and marketed to attract tourists. He also expects filmmakers to leverage the country's ranking as politically stable to make Ghana a preferable film and tourism hub.
My government recognizes the importance of the film industry, and that is why I'm here. And I've tasked the Ministry of Tourism, Arts and Culture and the National Film Authority to make film tourism an important part of their activities. Our country has an abundance of forts and castles, national parks, historic palaces, wildlife and festivals that could be filmed or used as backgrounds for films and marketed for tourist purposes. The consistent favorable rankings of Ghana by the World Economic Forum Global Competitive Report as politically stable with a safe and secure environment, unique and better tourist assets and infrastructure should make the country a preferable film and tourism hub, which should be leveraged by Ghanaian film producers. We are indeed the safest country in West Africa and the 3rd most peaceful country on the continent. This enviable position has great marketing and promotional ramifications for the development and sustainability of the Ghanaian film industry.
And you heard the President Akufo-Addo speaking at the Africa Cinema Summit. And that ends it for the entertainment news segment here on Hot Edition, powered by 3 Entertainment. My name is Akofa. Thanks for your time.